morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruwoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very ideal and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of oil-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Good morning, welcome to Early Exchange, where we'll deal with issues that has to do with business, finance, national development, and the economy. Always my pleasure to be your host as always, and I am Femi Ayodele. Today we'll be looking at the plights of the Palestinian people. You know, today's dedicated to look at the rights of the Palestinian people because today's International Day of the Palestinian people, in order to draw attention to their rights, looking at the ongoing crisis between Palestinian people and Hamas, and then you also need to look at the attention to be drawn to the crisis ongoing. And you know that our obligation today is to ensure that you get the right of information. We are set to inform you, to educate you, to give you the best of programming today. We hope that as you spend the next 3 hours with us, you will make your day worthwhile. All you just have to do is to join our conversation on the YouTube, at Souq News. You can also join us on our social media platform to be part of this conversation. Now let's set the ball rolling as we'll switch over to our newsroom, where Adesua is standing by to take us around the world with news update. Adesua, good morning, and how are you today?
Good morning to you, Femi, and good morning to you, our viewers, and welcome to the morning news update right here on Souq News, where we shape policies and enhance development. I'm Adesua Irumoseli. First, the highlights of the bulletin. Nigeria to develop integrated national electricity policy to enhance power sector. Nigeria's Port Authority implements port community system to boost blue economy. Angola begins diamond mining operations at Luele project. Italy, Saudi Arabia and South Korea compete to host Expo 2030 World Fair in Paris. Now the news in full. Following President Bola Tinubu's assent to the electricity bill on June 9, which empowered states, companies and individuals to generate, transmit and distribute electricity, the federal government is set to develop integrated national electricity policy and strategic implementation plan to enforce technical standards and regulations in the sector. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu announced this during the Nigerian Electricity Management Service Agency roundtable meeting held recently. He added that this act, which has replaced the Electric Power Sector Reform Act of 2005, will help to establish a comprehensive and legal institutional framework for the Nigerian electricity supply industry. Furthermore, Adelabu highlighted that the Ministry of Power is diligently collaborating with the National Council on Power to seek approval from the Federal Executive Council (FEC) for the proposed policy. Moving on, Nigeria's Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, says the reduction in security incidents on Nigerian waters and the wider Gulf of Guinea is a result of the effective legal and institutional framework implemented in the nation's maritime domain. He revealed this during the 33rd session of the International Maritime Organization General Assembly in London. Oyetola noted two key factors that contributed to the improved improved security situation. Firstly, the enactment of the Suppression of Piracy and Other Offences Act strengthened the legal framework. Secondly, is the implementation of the Integrated National Surveillance and Waterway Protection Solution known as the Deep Blue Project, which has helped to enhance maritime security through its command and control infrastructure. Still on the maritime economy, the Nigerian Port Authority says it's taken steps to implement a port community system that aims to tap into the potential of the national blue economy. The managing director of agency, Mohammed Bello Koko, revealed this at the ongoing 33rd session of the International Maritime Organization General Assembly in London. Bello Koko described the system as a game-changing initiative that will integrate all stakeholders in the maritime sector and expressed confidence that Nigeria will achieve the necessary port automation and integration ahead of the 2025 deadline for member countries. The system is expected to enhance transparency, support ease of doing business, and facilitate trade within the Nigerian maritime domain. Away from that, the United Nations Development Programme, the Federal Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, and the National Bureau of Statistics have come together to create a program aimed at enhancing data visualization in Nigeria. The UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator Matthias Espal stressed the importance of this project for the full implementation of government policies and programs in the country, and highlighted the need to track key indicators of progress to meet UN 2030 agenda for sustainable development. The visualization platform will provide a human face to data and help in better understanding of the related issues. Similarly, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Bagudu, expressed his belief that the platform would give Nigerians greater access to information and a better understanding of their country's developmental challenges and opportunities. In another development, in order to restore peace and security in some areas at the Federal Capital Territory, the Federal Capital Territory Administration has announced plans to reclaim and repurpose ungoverned spaces occupied by hoodlums and criminals. Similarly, it will also convert these open spaces into parks and recreation centers as a strategy to reduce crime rates in the neighborhoods. The director of the FCTA Development Council Department, TPL, Mukhtar Galadiba, who revealed this, expressed concerns about the persistent return of hoodlums despite multiple clearances in the Katampe extension. Galadima emphasized the unsuitability of the area for any activities due to its proximity to a high-tension line. He also acknowledged the possibility of internal and external exploitation of these individuals and assured that an investigation is underway to bring those involved to justice. Moving on, the CEO of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, Dr. Aminu Maida, has called on Nokia Networks to increase its investment in research and development to support the growth of information and communication technology in Nigeria. Dr. Maida made this request during a meeting with a delegation from Nokia Networks led by Jano Srijala, the Deputy Minister and Under Secretary of State for International Trade from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland. The purpose of this visit was to explore opportunities for collaboration between Nokia Networks and NCC with a focus on technology transfer and the development of technical skills among Nigerian youths. Dr. Maida stressed the importance of R&D in driving innovation and building a knowledge-based economy. He encouraged Nokia to deepen its commitment to R&D in Nigeria and contribute to the development of local content. Srijala highlighted Nokia's existing partnership in the country and expressed the company's interest in increasing investments in R&D. And also, Kano State Command of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, says it has successfully destroyed over 15.7 tons of narcotic drugs and other psychotropic substances. This was revealed by the command's public relations officer, Sadiq Maidatari. He noted that these operations took place between October 8, 2020 and October 17, 2030, and the various substances include cannabis sativa, cocaine, psychotropic substances, methamphetamine, barbiturates, and expired drugs. According to him, NDLEA's effort in eliminating these illegal substances from circulation in Kano State have been instrumental in curbing drug abuse and ensuring public health and safety. Still ahead, the World Health Organization has sounded an alarm regarding the increasing rate of tuberculosis infections in Borno State. The head of missions and country representative for the organization, Dr. Walter Mulumbo, expressed this concern during the 13th WHO End-Term Joint Operation Review in Yola, focusing on the northeast region of Nigeria. The session, which encompasses Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe state areas affected by the Boko Haram insurgency, highlighted the urgency of addressing health challenges arising from the conflict, assuring the readiness of the WHO to collaborate with the Borno state government to tackle the issue. Dr. Mulumbo urged stakeholders to take swift action to accelerate assistance and achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goal of leaving no one behind. We'll take a breather now, and when we return, foreign news. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning News Update right here on Souq News. Remember, you can engage with us on all various social media platforms. Now, onto the foreign scene. In a positive turn of events, a Kenyan court has ruled that the country levy introduced by President William Ruto in June is illegal. The levy, intended to finance a low-cost housing program, was met with opposition as it was deemed discriminatory and excluded informal workers. The court's decision to declare the levy unlawful is seen as a victory for fairness and equality. This ruling brings relief to Kenyan taxpayers, particularly in the time of economic challenges and high inflation. It highlights the court's commitment to uphold the principles of justice and protecting the rights of all citizens. Still in Africa, Angola has commenced diamond mining operations at its New Lele project, which is considered the largest in the country and one of the world's largest in terms of estimated resources. This development comes at a challenging time for the global diamond industry, as demand for diamond jewelry has been affected by factors such as high interest rates in the US, sluggish recovery in China post-pandemic, and competition from lab-grown diamonds. The Loele project, discovered by Angola's state-controlled diamond miner Katako in 2013, is anticipated to be the only significant new diamond mine to begin production in the decade. According to the report, the resources are estimated to contain 628 million carat of diamonds with a projected lifespan of 60 years. The project is expected to gradually increase its annual processing capacity from the initial 4 million metric ton to 1 per year to 12 million tons over the course of a few years. The pilot state of the project has already yielded a significant production of 5 billion carat of diamonds. Elsewhere, Uganda is currently engaged in negotiations with Chinese export credit agency Sinosure and Exim Bank to secure a loan. The purpose of this loan is to fund the construction of a pipeline that will aid Uganda in exporting its crude oil to global markets. The funds will be utilized for the various project components, including the supply, installation, commissioning, and support of the national data transmission backbone infrastructure. The World Bank, a significant development lender for Uganda, suspended loans to the country following President Yoweri's endorsement of the Anti-Homosexuality Act. This law imposes several penalties, including death, for engaging in a range of homosexual activities. In another development, Italy, Saudi Arabia and South Korea are vying to host the Expo 2030 World Fair in Paris. This highly anticipated event attracts millions of visitors and billions of dollars in investment. The three countries have been engaged in intense negotiations and lobbying efforts in the French capital in order to secure votes from the 182 member states of the Bureau International de Exposition. In the race, Rome has positioned itself as a more ethnic choice, emphasizing human rights, democracy, and sustainable development, making it a credible contender against Riyadh, which is currently seen as the front-runner. This event, held every 5 years, brings in significant tourism and investment. Over the past few months, the international delegations of Italy, Saudi Arabia, and South Korea have been actively campaigning and holding events in Paris to gain the support of the 182 member states. And finally, Berkeley is considering making 900 positions in its British business redundant, according to Employees Union Unite. The potential job cuts are part of the bank's efforts to reduce costs and enhance its financial performance. While Barclays has yet to comment on the specific number of jobs cut, it previously stated in its third quarter results announcement that it would be implementing cost reduction measures. Barclays is striving to save up to $1.25 billion and may eliminate up to 2,000 jobs as part of its cost-cutting strategy. The CEO, C.S. Venkata Krishnam, is working to boost the bank's return ahead of an investor update in February, where more information about the cost-cutting plan and plans for income growth will be revealed. And that's our package on Morning News Update. Many thanks for staying with us. Stay tuned for more analysis on Early Exchange. I'm Adesua Eremosele. Thanks for watching.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing H. Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, sir, for taking us around the world with news updates. It was quite comprehensive. Now it's time for news analysis, where we review major headlines trending for today. And as usual, we'll have an in-house analyst, Dr. Idahosa Osamanze is here with us. Good morning. How are you today?
Femi, good morning.
Yeah,
I like this turtleneck thing. And I think I should go and look for my own blessing. Good
It
morning.
appears you didn't get the memo.
Don't worry, we'll work with that so that you can get yours. Good
morning,
morning. Thank
viewers.
you for joining us. And Femi. Good
I'm
morning.
blessing all you today.
I'm good.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
So let's start the analysis now. We're looking at power supply in Nigeria following President Bola Tinubu's assent to electricity bill. The federal government is set to develop an integrated national electricity policy and strategy implementation to enforce technical standards and regulations in the sector. You know, recently the president had to assent to the electricity bill, which is to empower states and individuals, organizations to start generating electricity. You know, the bottleneck in the power sector has been in the area of transmission. Yeah, you could generate, but when it comes to transmission, you know, you have to ensure that it is connected to the national grid. And if you look at the state of things now, with the level of infrastructure, you know, the level of investment in that sector, there's a need to decentralize that sector so that you give him room for more players, more investors. And now the president did us a favor, which was a good one, you know, shortly after he came into power, to sign the electricity bill. But now to complement this now, the Ministry of Power and the minister are now coming up with what we call integrated policies, which is to bring about the regulatory framework and standard and guidelines when it comes to the technicalities involved in implementing it. What it means now is they are opening up that sector for investors, looking at the option of renewable energies, and then for states who wants to invest in that sector, you have to follow that standard and that technicalities. Let me start with the man who usually have the wise counsel. The power sector now, what's your take?
Well, I think we have stayed around that mountain for too long. So, like they say in the scripture, it's a time to move forward. And I think this, for me, is the forward-looking thing. And these are the part of the reforms, of course, which people have all clamored for, that we see how things can get better. And we are not overburdening the center and allow the subnationals and local entities to be able to play in most of these sectors, because what the Constitution of Nigeria has done in really putting too much of burden on the federal government really make it to be dysfunctional. So with this happening, we can find that, of course, states that are quite proactive will be able to really sit down and then look at their power situation and then plan their things and do it their own way, which of course is actually what federalism is really all about, that people have the opportunity to retain some of their powers to determine certain issues. And one of these critical areas is power. But see, yes, because we're a federation, there's also a need to see that things are done in such a way that the distance between one state and the other is not too far. So the need for a regulatory framework cannot be overemphasized, because it is important to see how do we integrate all the states together into one bucket and see, even in terms of the sales of energy, make it easier. How do you migrate the states into the grid? Because the fact that states are producing wouldn't mean that they will just be selling and distributing, because there's also a need for them to also sell to other states who may not have the capacity to generate. And therefore, that regulatory framework becomes very important to put in place to see how do we do this power business from generation to transmission and to distribution, because all these issues have their own peculiar issues, not just transmission alone. Generation is a problem, transmission is a problem, distribution is a problem. So what that will mean is that as states are empowered to do this, they of course have to contribute to the national grid, and then from the national grid you redistribute, and then of course states get value from the national body that regulates that industry. So the need to harmonize and set policy in place to determine how people will play in that industry, I think that's what the ministry is trying to do, and then it's commendable from my point of view.
It's a good one. If it is well done, if a lot of states can take advantage, I'm using if because it's really conditional. Not every state in Nigeria can afford to generate power. Not to talk about transmitting and distributing. Just a few states have been able to do that so far at small levels. Edo State, I think Lagos State, and maybe one or two other states presently in Nigeria, and they've successfully done that, but not widespread, but to some extent supporting businesses. So if a lot of states can key into that, it will achieve the initial aim of privatizing the power sector, which was to make power available at competitive rates. So it means that you could choose to subscribe to the state-generated power supply. You could choose to subscribe to the other discos. It depends on which one seems better for you. So that way, the issue of power not being available or tariff being too high may just be addressed with that. But again, it comes down to the states. How many states can do this?
Well, the good thing is with these development, you give room for more players. It gives room for more competition. You have more international and local investors coming into the space, and what that means is the customers can choose, who to work with or who to bank with. And what that means is it brings efficiency into the system. And now that you are having a kind of regulatory framework which will also instill standards, but because it's not just about investing in that sector, there must be layout procedures, standards, so that will guide, rules of engagement and rules of operation in that sector. So that's the essence of this policy that the minister is talking about. And the good thing is, I feel, even states and local government can key into it. You can have a partnership with an organization.
Did I mention local government
through
in this
PPP,
time?
Yes, that can be achieved. A station
I think
where
we're talking about states and maybe the private sector, not local government, because I don't see the capacity of a lot of local government.
Which means you bring in an investor into local government, into an area, and then they look at the layout and see what they can do. It doesn't have to be financed by the government or the local government.
The aspect
it can
you're
be
talking
a PPP
about.
arrangement.
You shouldn't even
No, we all know, for some they can afford it, but it doesn't have to be outrightly financed by the local government or the state government. It can be a public-private arrangement whereby you bring in investors and then you provide the enabling environment for these investors, to take over. And I think that's what we look at what happened to the telecom in Nigeria, which exactly was the fact that they created the right environment, the right framework for, individuals, private organizations, to come. It was decentralized and privatized, and now it's better for it. So same thing can be replicated in the power sector. All right, let's move on to blue economy, which is the rave of the moment, the area where federal government is more passionate about, because recently they had to rejig the name of the ministry to Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. Now, the minister says the reduction in security incidences on Nigerian waters and wider Gulf of Guinea as a result of effective and legal implemented the nation's he's talking about the issue of what you call piracy here, Now, the minister is trying to say that the reason why you've not recorded cases of piracy in Nigeria in recent times is because of the legal framework and then the bringing up the right surveillance on Nigerian waterways, which in recent times, we agree that the issue of piracy is a global thing, A few years back, you have these issues occurring at the Niger Delta area of Nigeria, a lot of piracy in Nigeria coastal line, whereby even at a point, contracts were given to Tumpolo and the rest of them, former militants, who run security outfit to protect, pipelines and some of the waterways. But now in recent times, we've had a reduction of that, and the minister is trying to attribute that to having the right legal framework, and then the right surveillance on Nigerian waterways. Hidauza, what's your take on this? In recent times, Nigeria have not recorded much of activities that has to do with piracy in Nigeria, even though it's a global issue, and that's what the minister is trying to say. Do you think
I think the minister didn't say anything that is strange to us, because we are just at the front of the water here. Yeah. So we can see the gunboats all moving up and down on the marine here. So it actually suggests that, of course, we have tightened up security on our water. This is from this end, and so you are not having plenty of incidences. And one of the real reasons, of course, again, that has affected trade in Nigeria is actually this issue of insecurity on our waterways. I remember some years ago, I was going to get some equipment from China, and I was trying to convince the manufacturer of the equipment to ship those equipment, because I was going to use them in Benin City, to put it to the closest port to me. Either Port Harcourt would be better for me, or even get to Warrior, and they said, no, we can't get there. The maximum we can get to is Apapa Port. And then, of course, this has actually put pressure on the basic infrastructure in Lagos, so to speak, because Lagos seems to be the only gateway right now that, of course, these activities are happening. So with increased security on our waterways, it is easier for shipping companies to be able to do business in this other side, and then, of course, shift some traffic there, create some economy in that area, and then, of course, we can take full advantage of our water system. Well, to the extent to which the law is affecting this one is what I might be able to say. But I think really the Navy is doing so much, and also coupled with the agreement the previous regime had with, of course, Tompolo and his men to also help with the surveillance, and I think it's paying off. And we have consistently seen some rise in the output production, even in terms of crude in recent time. That, of course, we can boast that today we can do up to 1,700 million barrels per day. Is also an attestation to the fact that security has improved greatly. But I think, like they said, it's the greatest room in the whole world is the room for improvement, that we need to do more to see that our waterways are safe enough that people can do business, not just even the people walking through the water. Even around the coastal belt, a whole lot of activity should be happening if the places are safe enough. And I think that's what government should focus on, because if we must develop, security must be our priority. At the waterways, at the airways, at the landways, all these places should be secured. And then, of course, there's a great need now to invest in the basic infrastructure, which is the real issues in the port. If the minister can do so much, and we have to invest in our port infrastructure, dredging of the waters are done, and we are having more betting platforms in the port, and then, of course, a lot of things can come. And shipments can come into here. The more shipment we receive, of course, the more excise and import duties we get. All these things are the things that will actually make that economy to be worth the while as it is.
Yes, it also said it all, because what's insecurity around the waterways has cost Nigeria is so much. Beginning from oil thefts, it has cost Nigeria a whole lot. And then for even those who are in the shipping business, sometimes they also complain about theft, about the activities of pirates on the waterways. And when you mentioned the coastal areas, it just hits me really, because there's a lot of insecurity going on around that area. If you look at the Niger Delta area, particularly where there have been incidences of kidnapping and all, what has made it very easy is the waterways and how porous it is, that people can just, kidnap someone from within the city and then they move them through the waterways. So ensuring that the waterways are secure is not just going to help the shipping business, it's also going to help security in the city, because that part looks like, oh, it's easy to take people across the boat. If there's security, it also curbs that aspect of criminality in the city. So it's a very wide web that if you are able to tackle that area, the effect of it is widespread into other areas. So I'm looking at security being extended to other areas where we could have river ports, and where we even have ports that are not well utilized. And it will also boost the economy of those areas. For instance, Anambra have been trying to have the river ports, even Edo State trying to have the Gili seaport and all of that. So if we could have all of this working, that means we're quite ready to harness all the gains of the blue economy. But until we'll extend beyond the Lagos ports, it's really not going to be full gain for us.
Now let's look at the Blue Economy Project. It's not a new thing globally, but Nigeria is taking more interest in it now than ever, because they feel they can tap the resources inherent in it. Let me take this to Ida Hausa. What do you think should be the priority of the minister now, looking at the issue of Blue Economy Project? What should he do to enable to maximize the opportunity and the potential inherent in the blue economy?
There's so much that is before the minister, apart from the infrastructure that we have spoken about, is also to see how we can also get the water clean. You see, because the waste deposit in the water is also make it really very dangerous, really, even for sea aquatic life. So these are issues because I don't think we are doing so much in that regard. Because the last study I saw from the United Nations on the impact of, plastic waste in the oceans is massive. And again, because of the activities of the production of crude and the transportation around waterways also make the water really toxic. Because the blue economy does not just settle around shipments alone. There's also aquatic life that, of course, we should harvest. Yesterday we were talking about Norway with fish. Euryalic mala fish is inside the water. So all these things are the things that the world are taking advantage of. Now, there's also a whole lot of tourism that grow around the waterways. That's why I talked about the cleanliness of the waterways and the security around those coastal belts to see that we can begin to build good and invest in skyscraper because tourism naturally grow around the water. And I made this example the last time. Palm Jumeirah came as a result of UAE thinking of how to increase the size of their waterways. And from 36 miles to about 360 miles. So these are people who are creating water. And nature has given this to us for free. So those activities that are happening around those water area are things that, of course, we must have to focus on. But majorly, the pollution of the water had to be taken care of. In this case, which means, of course, the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy will need to do a kind of a mass awareness campaign or sensitization of people who live in the coastal area not to pollute the waters, because that is also very important, and we need to emphasize that. Because it is easy for people who live in coastal belt to just empty their waste in the water, thinking that the water is going to carry them. But that's dangerous to that economy which we are looking at in that area. So the minister must do all of this. There have to be a lot of engagement with stakeholders, and also to see how we can also clean up that sector, because there's also so much rot in the sector. There are a lot of bottlenecks in terms of multiplication of agencies within the port area. For example, we can have one-stop shop in the port where, of course, data are synchronized and shared between the agencies. So there's no need to have an NDLA look at a vessel that had come or container that is in the port. Then, of course, some come to do his work. Then you have NAFDAC doing his work. All these things cause delays. And then, of course, delays are not good for businesses. So what they should do, see, how do we use technology to solve this? That once this scanning is done by one agency, it is possible for other agencies to actually see it real time, on time, and then, of course, there'll be no need to delay, and then people can move in and move out without necessarily have to face these challenges of seeing too many faces within the port area. I think that for me would just be it.
Talking about cleanliness and preventing pollution, charity, they say, begins at home. The environment of the MP, how clean is it? Let's even start from there. And the local tourism, go to most of our beaches, how clean are they? Do they even attract us who are in here? Let's talk about those from outside. So these are things that people really need to take seriously, because the awareness, I believe, will bring the attention to it, because some persons just see it as it doesn't really matter. Even those who have businesses within the beaches don't see the need to keep the environment very clean and conducive. They just feel, oh, it's water. people will want to come there. And that's why some of them are almost running out of business. People hardly go there because the environment is filthy. You want to go there, sit, relax, and just enjoy enjoy nature, but you want to do that within a clean environment. So a lot of sensitization needs to happen, but I believe too it should be followed up with punitive action, because when you talk to people at times without some actions to follow up as punitive measures, when you don't do what is expected, people don't do what they need to do.
In addition to that, I think one of the things that should also be the priorities of the minister is to look at the issue of port automation, how to bring technology into port activities, because there's a deadline set by the International Maritime Organization for all members nations, which has to be for 2025. So, a few days ago, we had the plan by the minister to look at national shipping line, which for me, it's a big distraction. So what he needs to focus on is to look at the issue of port automation, so that at least this will drive all the processes, the activities, daily activities at the port. We have a deadline, which is 2025. Nigeria needs to, up their game so that at least we can be able to meet up with this deadline. And the earlier we start, the better for us. Rather than, diverting the money into acquiring, fleets or ships and things like that towards the national shipping line, which over the years, or from the experience that we've had in the past, hasn't been fruitful. It's important for him to look at what he can do in the next 3 to 6 months, to make his ministry or to write his name in the book of history. And I think for me, the issue of port automation, whereby virtually every activity is manually driven. You have customer officers, you have these doing that. Everything has to be automated so that you have a situation whereby within your own with your own laptop, you can access information, you can access data, and that gives you the impression of what you need to do before you even get to the port. That's why people get to the port. You see them spending days, weeks, spending money on damages and several charges. So with this, I think our ports will be better than what it is.
Yeah, but just to allude to the fact that you have made, the Bureau for Public Service Reform, BPSR, is actually doing a lot in that direction to see that all government agencies are automated. And I'm aware that they are doing some training now for some top civil servants to see how to get them key into this program of automating the government, because really that's where revenue leakages all come from. And if we can use e-government to actually block leakages, we can be much more prosperous. And this wide infrastructure gap that we talk about every day, we can start a journey of closing those gaps. So automation is what it is, and we even need to deploy humanoids and robotics to help do some services with not necessarily having human hand who will slow down process. So these are where we are in, because the whole world is driven by AI today, and we don't have to be left behind at all.
Well, having the willpower to do that is what is very key, because we can have the machineries brought, the equipment brought in, but after a while, they are said to have one issue or the other, and at some point, we need the human interface, so we need to revert back to the manual. Take, for instance, the the INEC thing, where people had to resort to manual voting again, So the willpower is basically the issue.
All right, let's look at what is happening at the Federal Capital Territory. The administration has announced plans to reclaim and repurpose ungoverned spaces occupied by hoodlums and criminals. Similarly, this will be converted to parks, recreational centers, as a strategy to reduce crime rates in the neighborhoods. The issue of ungoverned spaces, looking at places where they have just been abandoned over the years, and the hoodlums, they've turned themselves to tribal chiefs to take over those spaces, and that's been the breeding ground for criminals, We have something similar to that in Lagos. Some of these federal buildings that have been abandoned now, if you get to them, they are being occupied by hoodlums. And these are things that should be taken with all sense of seriousness. Idauza, what do you think? Ungoverned spaces, what kind of security threats?
Well, I think that it's the right thing to do. Abuja, being the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria, needs to be beautified and that's well deserving, because you go to other state capitals and see the way things are done. Abuja had a master plan that has since been violated by people. And one of the things that I have seen in recent time is that a lot of people bring in sentiments and emotion into some of all these things. And then we start to begin to rationalize illegal activities and actions. And that's the thing that's so appalling about our country. And people talking about livelihood. The fact that you need livelihood does not make you to break laws. And I think this is the issues that, of course, the FCT minister need to really put his feet on the ground. There are a whole lot of parks that are designated in the city center. And if you go into them now and see the way those places are abused, they're not good enough. And they're not befitting for a capital territory. So this is what, of course, government really need to address. All the green spaces in FCT, they are being, destroyed by illegal activities. And then, of course, people say, people are just trying to make a living. There are so many ways to make a living without breaking rules and regulations. And a lot of people build on places that are supposed to be recreational centers for people who live in this space, and then the whole place is crowded out. I really feel that we'll have the minister who will have the willpower as where fire stop and see how to actually regain the original master plan of that city, which was designed so beautifully. And we are not littering the places and really trying to justify activities that are known. Somebody has built a skyscraper here. Why will you pull it down? This is wickedness. You see, we moralize evil. If people know that they are supposed to build, and they should have looked at the plans and see, if somebody is giving you a space that you know that is not supposed to be built, and you have taken it, and because you have connection with the person, then of course you already know from day one that that was an illegal activity. So it is important that we must begin to learn and enforce righteousness in our land. It's important. No matter how hungry people are, it's not only in Nigeria people are poor, it's not only in Nigeria people are hungry. People should be able to do things and do them legally and not become nuisance to public spaces. So this is, for me, a welcome development if, of course, the power that be will allow this to happen, so that we can, no matter who's all is God, it doesn't really matter. If this is violating the plan, let's remove it so that people can learn lesson. Lawlessness cannot take us anywhere. The only thing that can take us to the kind of a society people are dreaming of is lawfulness.
It is not just in Abuja, it's in almost every part of the country. There was a time we did a report on abandoned buildings. How do these buildings become abandoned? Some of them are even government buildings, and that's because there is no continuity in government in Nigeria. For instance, a current administration starts a project and is unable to complete it before the end of their tenure. What stops the incoming administration from completing the works? That's how you sometimes see that projects are abandoned. And even when they are private buildings, maybe for one reason or the other, the owner cannot continue development of the area. It is for the Ministry of Works and Ministry of Environment to work hand in hand to ensure that these buildings are not left undeveloped, unoccupied for a long period of time, because once they are there, maximum 6 months, 1 year, you will find hoodlums taking advantage of them. And because there is no monitoring, nobody's asking questions, nobody's saying anything, it becomes the culture, it becomes the norm. Some have been inhabited by hoodlums for years without anybody asking, what are you doing here? What goes on around here? And then it becomes a threat to those who are in that vicinity. So a lot needs to be done by the Ministry of Works. If you're given approval for buildings, you monitor that over time it is completed and it's put to use. If it is a government building, funds should be made available for the completion. Now, where it doesn't happen because there's been a change of government or change of administration, there should be some continuity. If the government cannot continue with the plan, then they can lease it for use by private individuals.
I think this has been of concern to President Tinubu, and which is what informed the reason he has to choose someone like Wike as FCT minister. If you look at his antecedent and what he has done in Port Harcourt, the president needed someone who could restore the glory of Abuja, to ensure that Abuja returns to the master plan. What has happened over the years is you have corrupt officials, I must say that, who do not they didn't do their job, because you ask yourself in the first place, where were these buildings? Where were they approved? There are some buildings who got approval, and now they are being built on illegal, spaces. So there's a need to also look at some of the officials in those ministry. There are certain approval that shouldn't have happened in the first place. And now the minister addressed a press conference recently where he was saying that some VIPs were being spared. But this time around, it's not going to be business as usual, and it's going to use its power to ensure that Abuja is being restored to the master plan. In recent times, it has been, people somehow bring sentiment into it. They've misinterpreted the man, saying, okay, because it's from this, it's from that, it's from this state. But the truth is, if these things are left undone, that's why hoodlums are taking advantage of it, and what it means is going to constitute security threats. It will be a breeding ground for armed robbers, all kind of evil kidnappers. It will be a den for them, and so that's why it's important to take over this. And like you said, these spaces or these buildings, like the one in Lagos that has been abandoned over the years, they can be taken over by individuals. They can be leased or sold, or even you have an organization like AMCON who can also take over, Asset Management Company of Nigeria. They can also take over to manage these assets, or you lease it to individuals who will take advantage of these buildings and then use them. So I'm happy now that the FCT minister is, is taking this as a sense of seriousness because of the security threat it's going to constitute to not just Abuja, but to the whole nation. All right. Let's look at the Nigerian Communication Commission, which has called on Nokia Networks to increase its investment in research and development to support the growth of information and communication technology in Nigeria. I know with that you're passionate about the issue of research and development. When it comes to the ICT sector now, the minister is now asking a particular company, which I don't want to mention, one of the network providers, or to ensure they invest in research and development. Now, this is very critical because as far as ICT sector is concerned, it's data-driven, and it's what we need to do. Talk to us why this is critical at this time.
Well, I don't really need to say so much that Nokia don't need to be really advised, so to speak, because if you know the story between Nokia and Samsung and how they have lost out in the telephony market, it's just the fact that sometimes we are comfortable with where we are and we don't want to see how to do more proactivity in terms of looking at our market and forecasting the future. So I think for me it's just a simple wise counsel that you need as a business, especially in a dynamic world where things are changing per second, that you need to continually monitor the lifestyle of your clients and your customer base to be sure that you are offering the right service, because that's the only way to stay in business. And that's quite key. One of the things that I have observed, I've been played in the research industry for some time, is that many people don't, especially in our own climate here, we don't value research, and we just feel that we have an idea. So just residual mind thought, and people think they can predict what is in the mind of other people. That is quite very, very surprising, because if companies or corporations are cutting budget, the first thing they cut is the budget on research. And sometimes you are marketing ignorantly, without really understanding the lifestyle change of the people. So I feel that for companies that are going to do great and able to see into the future, cannot but monitor the lifestyle of its audience and see what is the changing taste in their audience, and be able to see, yes, is our brand still able to deliver on its promises? And if it's not delivering, what are the lag? And then, of course, you have to do this proactively, because you see, because the buying behavior change with time. And if you have made some mistake here, and then people overlook it, or people are seeing technology everywhere, they are brand loyal, but it seems that you are static and you are not evolving with time. Very soon, people change their taste, and that's not difficult in consumer behavior. So I feel for it's a very wide concept that NCC is putting across. They had the basic infrastructure, they had the money at the time, but eventually didn't expect to see Android coming and see that people are going to be watching and streaming on telephone. But now, of course, they're trying to do the catch-up game, and this will require a lot of effort. It will require a lot of investment in R&D so that they can play themselves back to their #1 position.
It will require brands like Samsung take over because of people were just looking for clear pictures and all of that. It didn't really matter at that time how durable your phone couldn't do the other things was. It was going to last for 20 years, but for the 20 years, what will I use it for? So really it's about use, it's about the user. So if you do not customize whatever you're doing, your innovations to the need of the user, chances are that you're going to go out of the market. And that's the lesson.
All right.
You know Erica Brown wrote a book, he titled Innovate or Die. And that's the truth. Yeah. So if you're not innovating, you are facing death, because nobody is actually static. It's either you are moving forward or moving backward. So this is where innovation is critical. And of course, you cannot innovate until you invest in research and development. And that's the only way to predict the future. So if you can predict the future, you can own the market.
Before we wrap up, let's just see what the World Health Organization is saying about what is happening in Borno State. The World Health Organization has sounded an alarm regarding the increased rate of tuberculosis infections in Borno State. This has been of concern because this is something that has to do with health of the people in the northeast, not just in Borno State, but what the World Health Organization is saying that there's tendency spreads to other states across that region, and that's why there's a need to quickly address it. Now, it's of concern because people, this is where insurgency has happened and it's still happening. There are a lot of activities, a lot of people are displaced. In fact, most of these people are in IDP camps. And if you look at the state of things at the IDP camp, it's not that hygienic. Some of them are living in a very appalling state. And so if you now have a outbreak of this in such camps, it's not going to be a good thing. It's not going to be a good news. Idauza, what do you think should be done quickly? The good news is the WHO is trying to partner with Borno State to see what they can do to address it quickly. But what should be the action plan here?
I think it's for state governments to begin to really emphasize some of all these issues. There are actually tuberculosis vaccines that are available, really, that children could have taken at their early age and things like that. But sometimes you see the embracing of vaccine, and then, of course, because of the perception that people have given to it, really, especially in the northern part of the country, is also very worrisome. And I think that's what they should actually do, strengthen that vaccine spread across the state, at least for the children that you can actually salvage and they don't get to carry them. But I think tuberculosis is not a bad disease. It's treatable today. There are no cures to it, and it's, of course, for the state to really take active and see how screening can be done en masse, really, for people, and see we stop the spread or allow people to die without reasons. So for me, the one is fine, and I don't think it is who should be telling us this. It should actually be from the Ministry of Health in Nigeria, who should be able to monitor these things and report to the people, and to allow foreign bodies to tell us what our problems are. I don't think that is what we should embrace as a people. We have a Minister of State for Health, we have a Minister of Health who is active, and all these agencies. We have principal head who are actually seeing these things. They should be in better position to report this than we have to wait for who to tell us that we are having an epidemic in our hand. I don't think that's good enough for our nation. I think we should be more proactive than to allow foreigners to set the pace for us.
Yes, and for those wondering who is the who, who is WHO, what health organization? And I think the reason that they are at the forefront of this is because they're actually closer to the displaced persons because of the humanitarian work that they do. If you go to most of these internally displaced camps, you find the presence of these international bodies more than you will find the presence of the local health authorities or even the local government agencies. That's why they were first to discover it and even raise an alarm over it. But going forward, I think it's high time we begin to look at the internally displaced persons camp. These persons have been there for years. I understand that, yes, insurgency in some parts of the country is still ongoing, but we should begin to think of a resettlement plan for them because at least in one camp, you have more than 10,000 persons. Children, adults living in conditions that are not good, which makes it very easy for diseases like this to spread. They share utensils, they share things in common. And so it's not good because if we allow it to continue, yes, it is treatable, but it will burden the health sector at the end of the day. So the government should begin to look at how to resettle these people. What is the plan for them after years that they have been in the camps?
All right, with that submission, we'll have to wrap it up now. I must thank Dr. Idauza Samazi for sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much for being here as always.
Thank you, Blessing, Femi, thank you. Viewers, we're happy to have you stay with us up to this point.
And don't worry, we'll get you your own turtleneck.
Yes,
I am waiting for it.
Customized especially for you.
It will have the inscription, the wise one.
Thank you so very much.
All right, what a good one. We'll go on a short break now, and when we return, we'll look at our big story for today. What will that be? That's why you have to stay with us, and that will take place after this short break.
Broad Street. Broad Street, situated in Lagos Island, is steeped in Nigerian history. Once the biggest financial hub of the country, it housed the headquarters of major banks, linked to CBN, the Stock Exchange, and the loads of lender companies. Broad Street is a historically significant street. It has played a central role in the development of Lagos and history, an important commercial and administrative center for the British colonial authorities. It was also a home to some of the city's earliest modern buildings. Broad Street was a residential area in the pre-colonial era. With the British came the Methodist Boys High School in 1878 and the Broad Street Prison in 1882, renamed Freedom Park. The General Hospital, which was a British military hospital, was built in 1893, being the first general hospital in Nigeria. The old British Secretariat building, which is now the Federal Ministry of Justice, was built in 1906. Broad Street has seen a full turn into modern commercial office blocks, complexes, skyscrapers, and markets from the outer marina through Akpombo, early into the Adeniji-Adele Road. Broad Street is one of the busiest streets in Nigeria on weekdays, where commercial activities take place day and night. From modern buildings to ancient structures, this street gives one a raw dose of life in Lagos. Broad Street is often referred to as Lagos Financial District. It boasts a mix of architectural styles, reflecting its long history, colonial-era buildings, Victorian and Edwardian architectural features, alongside more modern skyscrapers and structures. Broad Street remains a vital, vibrant part of the Nigerian economy. Broad Street. Souq Enlightenment.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing H.A., Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruwoje, and Idahosa Osamaze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
The government says that subsidy is not in oil, and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, glad to have you back with us. Today we're looking at, the plights of the Palestinian people. Interestingly, today is International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. The United Nations created a day like this, which is November 29th of every year, to look at the plight of the Palestinian people, to draw attention to what they call the unresolved questions over the years. This resolution was done in 1977, and since then, the Palestinian people have been asking these questions about their rights and their plight. To help us drive this discussion, we are being joined by Ambassador Williams Wallace, who is the Honorary Consular General of Antigua and Barbuda to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He's an international economic expert. He's going to join us shortly. All right, Blessing, before we have our guest who's going to talk about, the international dimension to the plight of the Palestinian people, and also looking at the ongoing hostility between Israel and Hamas, the issue of the unresolved questions, the United Nations had a resolution in 1977. It was a General Assembly whereby there was a resolution to ensure that they create a special day like today, November 29th of every year, to look at the plights of the Palestinian people, who over the years feel they've been sidelined when it comes to global affairs, and also came up with what we call unresolved questions, which has to do with the right of the Palestinian people, right to self-determination, right to freedom. And there were several issues that happened over the year which has to do with taking over some spaces that belongs to the Palestinian people, which is practically one of the issues, the underlying issues that fuel the present crisis between Israel and, Hamas. You're aware that Hamas, launched an attack recently on, Hamas is a group of militants, who launched an attack on Israel recently, whereby some people were taken captives. About 240 Israelites were taken into captives, and that has led to the hostility, the tension, the war between Israel and Gaza, and then the connection to Hamas. Now, if we look at Hamas is coming up with this position that, over the years we've suffered this neglect, and now this is what is underlying our activity, and now it's now to take what we feel we can do to ensure that we save our people and take over our lands. Now, Israel on the other part is saying, hey, this is something that has to do with the lives of our people. The serious thing about the dimension of this, we don't pray for war, but when it happens, anything could happen. But you discover that the hostility happening between Israel and Hamas now, most of the casualties are children, women, even health workers, even civilians are the casualties.
Because they're the most vulnerable in war times.
Yeah.
They cannot defend themselves, particularly women and children. And which will touch a man more? When you come to his house, you take his wife, you take his child, or you take his children. That's the idea behind it all. They're more vulnerable, and it's more painful, especially when there are videos sent of how they're being tortured. So it's like a way to get actually to your enemy, as the case is. Really, over the years, there's been that tension between Palestine and Israel, particularly over...
It's an age-long crisis.
It's an age-long issue, particularly regarding land issues or territory. Territories were ceded to, or the Palestinian people feeling that the territories were ceded to Israel, and Israel claiming it's ours and all of that. So I think that on a day like this, because some persons actually do not understand the genesis of the whole thing, and are kind of wondering why have there been hostilities between these two nations. One feels suppressed which is the Palestinian people. They feel like they should have the rights to independence, the rights to self-determination, and they should also have the right to territory. But because of what had happened over the years, that it kind of did not go that way, there's been that grievance that have not been addressed. And you talked about the unresolved issues. But with the war that has broken out between Israel and Hamas, it's been forestalled for quite a long time. But it seemed like the evil day could not be postponed any further. It just had to happen, sadly so. It's bringing a lot of attention to the issues in the Middle East. How can peace exist in the Middle East? There are cultural issues that are making it quite impossible for peace to exist in the Middle East. There are religious issues that are making it impossible. And then there is also international politics, because it is being feared on both sides, while the Palestinian group, Hamas and all, are feared by some other nations rallying behind them, giving them support. You also have those behind Israel rallying behind them. But what the world forgets, or what those who were playing allies, whether known allies or undeclared allies, forget that if there is no peace in the Middle East, it just has a way of spiraling onto the rest part of the world, because every country has an ally. At some point, they would have to declare. At some point, it may lead to a full-blown war. And because you understand how strategic they are to the world, as the oil region, as energy is concerned, and as wealth too is concerned, it may be more dangerous for the world than what we've seen the Ukraine and Russia issue become. But coming back to the Palestinian people, as it is right now, whether we talk about their rights or not, in one way, it may seem like siding with one over the other, because there is a war situation from these issues. So I think the peace, how to resolve the conflict and ensure peace, should be the way forward on a day like this. But how the world is going to, or the UN is going to appease the Palestinian people for whatever grievance that they may have, and bring all of them to a round table, is what I do not know.
For international issues like resorting to war attacks, it's not the ideal way to resolve it, which is the best thing is to come back to the table and have resolutions, which is why one of the reasons the United Nations created a day like this, to draw advocacy to the plight of those people, for people to actually understand what they are, to create a voice for them, because it's also important in a democratic sector, everybody should have a voice. So you give a level playing field for everybody. So if you have a special day for this, for that, and other set of people, there should be a special day to also look at what the unresolved questions has been over the years, which is what is fueling this hostility. But let's hold our thought and give room for our international expert. He's a global affair analyst to shed his light on this issue. So we'll go on a short break now. When we return, our conversation with our guests will kick off. Stay with us.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you're on to Souq News.
If you're watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it, because this is Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souq News. Here's the Souq News, who had the courage to transcend a locked-off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souq News. Thank you very much.
National Theatre, Igomu. Built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged FESTAC 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by techno expert Stroll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, Souq Enlightenment. Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Eche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
Government says that subsidy is not in oil, and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is a bismarck. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, if you're just joining us, what a strategic moment to spend time with us on Early Exchange, because we're about looking at our big story for today. Today is UN International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, to look at the plight and the rights of the Palestinian people who over the years came up with this resolution being tagged the unresolved questions. So what are these unresolved questions? What has been the attention given to the rights and to the plight of the Palestinian people? What are these rights in the first place? We have a special guest with us, who is Ambassador William Wallace. He's the Honorary Consul General of Antigua and Barbuda to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He's an international economist, and when it comes to global affairs, he's an authority. Ambassador Wallace, glad to have you join us on the next thing this morning. Can you hear me, Ambassador Wallace? Glad to have you join us this morning. Please,
Thank you very much. How are you?
It's great. Glad to have you join us on the next thing this morning.
Yeah, are you hearing me well? I
hear you quite well,
unstable, but
how is Kenya today? You're joining us all the way from Kenya. So how is Kenya today?
Oh, Kenya is warm. The rains have subsided, so that's quite nice for moving around.
All right, so let's look at today. Today is a special day dedicated by the United Nations to look at the unresolved questions of the Palestinian people. Over the years, they've been raising these questions. I would like you to talk to us about how significant it is for us to have a special day like this dedicated to the plight or the rights of the Palestinian people. And what do you think are these unresolved questions?
Sorry, I didn't get that. What do I think? What?
All right, I said today being a special day dedicated by the United Nations to look at the plight of the Palestinian people. You know, in the light of the ongoing hostility between Israel, and Hamas, there's what we'll call a resolution that came up in 1977. That's the United Nations resolution about the unresolved questions being asked by the Palestinian people, talking about their rights over the years. So I would like you to talk to us how significant it is to have a day like this dedicated to look at the plight of the Palestinian people. And then what are these unresolved issues, that have taken over the years and now is becoming an age-long crisis? Could it be the reason or one of the reasons fueling the crisis ongoing between Israel and the Palestinian people. Ambassador, I hope you can hear me, sir.
Yeah, you said one of the things fueling the crisis is what? I just lost you there for a minute.
Okay, talk to us about the significance of having a special day like this to look at the plight of the Palestinian people. United Nations created a day like this.
A special day like this is very important from all aspects. Let's first look at the Israelis who went through the Holocaust. You know, they were dehumanized, they were maltreated, they were exterminated. So if we only use Israel as a reference point, you know, we can see where the entire world must focus on humanitarianism and what is important and expected for humans to behave and live on this planet. So what is happening with Israel and Palestine is significant because both sides have to look at what they don't want. What don't we want? We don't want destruction and extermination of our people. We don't want our people to be wiped out from the face of this earth. So both sides have to exercise and should have been exercising caution and be accommodating to each other. After all, they've come from the same father, you know, going back to Abraham and others. So they are all brothers or cousins, if you want to call it. But of more concern of an international day is that we don't even look at the plights of Africans. So this day is significant because we have Africans who need reparation, who have been exterminated by Belgium and other countries, the Native Americans. So this day is significant if we have to, as humans, look at what is it that we are talking about here. We are talking about humanitarian issues. We are talking about living together. We are talking about working together. We're talking about loving and embracing each other. So the UN International Day is significant, very significant for all of us as humans, because every one of us, Africans, Blacks, Native Indians, Native Americans, Israelis, Palestinians, have all been attacked with the view, that is the important thing, with the view of extermination. And, you know, thank God that there was an intervention and the war was lost in Germany to stop the extermination of Jews. But Israel should also be thinking, you don't want to be called and labeled as being responsible for exterminating Palestinians. And also by the same token, the West now and the rest of the world must also look into the extermination issues that has happened from Africans, because I'm a Pan-Africanist. So I want to raise all those things as part of the International Human Rights Day. What are we doing to appease and reparation for what has gone on with Africans? More concerned also is that what is happening to Africans in Israel? What is happening to Africans in Palestine? Those are questions too that must be addressed if we are talking about international humanitarianism.
Thank you, Ambassador Wallace, for joining us on the show this morning. So I want to ask, by a General Assembly in 1947, they recommended the partition of Palestine into independent Arab and Jewish states. That's what it looks like the genesis of this whole issue between Israel and Palestine is. Could that be said to be correct, that recommendation by the General Assembly for the partition of Palestine into Arab and independent Arab and Jewish states is the foundation of this crisis? And if so, how would it have been best to resolve the issue?
I didn't hear you clearly, but however, I think you talked about partitioning and the idea of a dual state. The genesis of separating and going into a place that is already occupied and then occupying it and then deciding that there must be two states If it was an agreement that was accepted by the owners of the land or the settlers of the land, then that's all fair and good. But was it? That's the point that has to be made. Was it? Was it an accepted arrangement between the Arabs and the Jews? Hey, we want a place to live, and do you mind if we, work together and give us some space in your area to settle? After all, we've had settlers all over the world before. Some were taken arbitrarily, and some were in agreement. You have, for example, in Nigeria, people that move from one area to another and settle, and they become homogeneous with the population there, and they live in peace and harmony. But then you have those who land grab and then forcefully take other people's land. What was it? What was agreed? That agreement, was it between the two peoples? That's the question that has to be asked.
So I would like you to take a listen. Let me read to you part of the resolutions that was done by the United Nations in 1977. And I wonder if this was done in 1977. We're in 2023 now. Take a listen. It says about the unresolved question. It says the question of Palestine remains unresolved, and then the Palestinian people are yet to attain their rights as defined by the General Assembly, namely the right to self-determination without external interference, the right to national independence and sovereignty, and the right to return to their homes and property from which they have been displaced. Now, you wonder if this was talked about at that assembly in 1977, and now we're in 2023. Do you think these are these are issues fueling the ongoing hostility and the crisis and the position being taken by a militant group like Hamas? Ambassador, I hope you can hear me, sir.
Yeah, some of it is dropping out, but I think you're mentioning the fact that militancy came about because of a certain element within the Palestinian people fighting for their rights. We have to ask the question: do they represent all of the Palestinian people? However, in many areas of the world, wherever you have unfair treatment, people will rise and defend themselves. Whether there's a legality of representation here is another question. But I haven't got all of what you have asked, so maybe if you just repeat, I can address it firmly.
All right, today is a day set aside for solidarity for the Palestinian people. To have solidarity, you must have understanding with the people that you stand in solidarity with. What kind of understanding should the world have with Palestine at this time?
I'm missing most of what you're saying, but you mentioned solidarity. Solidarity has to do with, do you stand up for the rights of people on both sides? Both sides are saying that they have the right for self-determination. So the solidarity has to do with who do you stand with and why? What are the prevailing factors that give you, a stance of solidarity? How and why do you stand solid with either side? I think this is more a case of, going to the drawing board. As most learned people say, at the end of every war, there's always peace talks. Why don't you have peace talks from the beginning and not have the war? So that we don't have a question of whose side do we side on, because war is terrible. At the end of the day, it's still killings on both sides. There's accusations on both sides. There is, atrocities on both sides, and everybody will claim that they've had atrocities. So I am of the view that we must talk first and not end up committing the atrocities, so that we now say, who do we side with? And then it's a question of, oppositions, one side marching against the other, and you will have that conflict ongoing. Let's have the peace first, and forget about, whose side do we stand on. It's not correct, because everybody will have claims as to why you should stand behind them. I'm neither going to stand behind Israel or Palestine, because it's a conflict and atrocities are being committed on both sides. It has to do with, let us, if we are talking about humanitarianism, sit down and talk and come to level-headed agreements and arrangements.
You to assess the role being played by some international bodies and then countries like the United States as regards the ongoing hostility between Israel and Palestinian people. What should be the kind of intervention that should come from countries like the United States and the international bodies? What are your expectations in order to be able to douse this tension?
There should be honest brokers. There should be honest brokers. Do not take sides if you're talking about humanitarianism and you really want, peace in a region. Do not take sides. Be honest brokers. If you are the world policeman or you have all the power, go in there, pull everybody together, sit down and say, what are the areas of disagreements? What are the areas of concerns? What are the economics behind all of this? Because there's economics behind this. There's the draining and the putting up a new canal. There is oil, there's gas. People, don't talk about these things. But behind a lot of conflicts, whether it's blood diamonds in the Congo, whether it is gold, whether it's Libyan oil, whether it's Iraqi oil, there is always some economics behind it. And it's all about displacing people and taking resources. Let's be fair, Femi. That is really what it is. So, and many people are claiming that they want the people of Palestine to be cleared from there so that, the resources of that area can be exploited. Now, whether that is true or not, time will tell. But in the meantime, if we are talking about humanitarianism and the plight of children, the plight of people on both sides, let's, even if it has to be an economic question, sit down and why can't they say, okay, let's share, the resources and exploit it for both our benefits if we are talking about humanitarianism. So honest brokers, which, people doubt that the US and the international West are honest brokers, should now display some kind of honesty and say, let us say what is really on the table here. Is it about resources? Is it about land? Is it about what? Let's sit down together and discuss this. Let's use our human thinking and not talk about, solidarity, which side, whose side, atrocities. No. What is the real question? What is the real rationale and reason behind these conflicts?
Right. How long it will take before their peaceful negotiation, we do not know. Because looking at the Ukraine and Russia conflict, it's started like this, and before you know, it's about 2 years. So, and if it's not curtailed immediately, there is a tendency it might spiral into the rest of the Middle East. How significant is peace in the Middle East to the rest of the world?
I didn't hear all of it, but I think you're saying it might spiral into a larger conflict. If that is the case, then yes, we are talking about, the religious sentiments. Of course, the Arab world will not stand by idly and watch the Arab Muslim brothers be decimated. So the prospect of everybody, and it's already happening, of Iran, of Saudi and all others being drawn into this conflict, into what could spiral into a major conflict in that part of the world, is very, very, prevalent that it will happen. And yes, there's a possibility of this spiraling totally out of control and consuming, the whole of the Middle East. Is that what we want if we are talking about humanitarianism?
All right. According to statistics from the Palestinian Authority, about 5,500 children have been casualties of the ongoing attacks or war between Israel and Hamas. Now, you discovered that most of the casualties are children, they are women, health workers. And when it comes to the Convention of War, these are people that should enjoy immunity or being spared. But you discover that there are more of the casualties. What does this suggest to us about the dimension of this war hostility and the danger it portends for that region?
Yeah, I think you're talking about convention on making sure that in war, women and children are protected. I didn't hear all of what you're saying, but if I have to guess, yes, there's protection for women and children, and it should not happen. Absolutely should not happen on both sides. I do not attest to or acquiesce to women and children being involved in conflicts and suffering, and therefore they should be protected. Whoever is responsible on both sides should be brought to the International Court of Justice. And if there are proofs, like they have had in World War I and World War II, and there are trials, these people should be brought to trial. If you knowingly, pursued and inflicted death and casualties on women and children. And I think a lot of investigation should be brought and should be shown, decisive evidence that this has in fact happened. I don't know, we don't know what the facts are about that, but bring the evidence, and then people who are responsible should be brought to book on either side, because it happened on both sides, although the volume that they are claiming is more on the other side. But when you weigh it up, it's not about volume, it's about the act. Who did what, and did it happen? Did you kill women and children on Israel's side? You are wrong. And if we have evidence, we bring you to book. Did you kill women and children on the other side purposefully? Then you should also be brought to book. So it's not about the volume. It's about the act. Who did what and when? And where's the evidence?
Let's look at the brokers of peace nationwide. What are the challenges with brokering peace during conflict and at war times? And how should it be? I'm asking this. We used to have the United Nations stand as a broker of peace when there are conflicts between nations. But over time, we'll see that the stand of the UN or the effectiveness of the UN coming into conflicts between nations has not been so strong, either because the nations do not want to listen to what the UN is saying, or it seems there's a kind of mistrust. So I'm asking about the challenges with brokering peace between conflicting nations. What are the challenges? What is the approach to ensure that there is peaceful resolution of conflicts between nations going forward, so it doesn't result into a war situation?
If you're talking about the UN and the UN challenges, the UN has not also been honest brokers, if we have to be fair, in that most times they have been accused of fueling more crisis, from which they benefit, especially in resource area. And maybe they do have an agenda, allow the conflicts to carry on and for the pursuit of whoever will be the winner, because there is an agenda. If it's material, resources and exploitation, let's be fair. The UN, if they are to play their role, should have entered into the conflict from very early, and said, listen, we are going to have a UN peacekeeping force here and ensure that this does not escalate. Did they do that? Has it been done? Have they made any effort to do that? Then that tells you, that's a trail. It's what we'll call a paper trail. Have they done any of that? I don't know. Do you? Are you aware? Have they entered into the conflict? Have they put down peacekeeping forces? No. They're allowing the conflict to carry on. So you ask yourself, what is the role of the UN? what really is the role of the UN if they cannot intervene, if they are supposed to be the world policemen, you know, to broker peace?
All right, Ambassador, as we wrap up, what will be your counsel to the leaders of both nations who are involved in this hostility? I would like to have your counsel to the leaders of these two nations who are into this ongoing war and crisis. As we wrap up.
Yes, sit down and talk and make sure that on both sides, whatever has happened, those to be held accountable. You know, in times of war, the people who have committed crimes, you know, you separate them from the conflict and you make sure and show the world and show each other that you're making these people accountable. Then sit down and talk and ask, what do we want to coexist, to make sure that we live in the future in harmony? Because you cannot wipe us out from the face of the earth, right? Both sides are wanting to do that. And I reference back again what has happened to the Jews in the 40s and the 30s. You know, extermination was the plan of Germany and, well, of the Germans under Adolf and the Nazis. So you do not want to be blamed for the same thing, that you are attempting to exterminate people and apartheid. You should even have sympathy for these people. Sit down and talk. After all, you know, there are areas of commonality. Sit down and talk. Again, it comes back to sitting at the table and working out a relationship. You know, there's international diplomacy, and bring on the honest power brokers, you know, who can help to broker that peace, help to broker the arrangement and the agreements that is required for two sets of people who are families, because they come from the same root, same tree, to coexist. You know, cousins fall out, brothers fall out, you know, but they're from the same tree. Let us, and that tree also leads back to humanity. So we are talking about us as humans.
All right, we must thank you so much, sir, for your time, you know, out of your busy schedule, for creating time, you know, to spend time with us on Early Exchange this morning. We must thank you for your brilliant submissions on the issue of the hostility going on between Israel and Hamas, and then what the United Nations needs to do to stop this ongoing crisis. Thank you so much for always coming through, as always.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Look forward to hearing from you again.
All right, that's an honest conversation as regards, you know, the hostility happening between Israel and Hamas, and our regards go to those whose families have been affected. We'll go on a short break now. Where we'll return, we'll look at the leather and footwear industry in Nigeria, the potential, the business side of it, and then what has been the impact of this to the economic development in Nigeria. That will take place after this short break. Stay with us.
According to reports by the Nigerian Institute of Leather Science and Technology, NILIST, Nigeria has the capacity to make 200 million pairs of shoes yearly, valued at more than $1.4 billion. In 2023, the revenue generated from the footwear market in Nigeria amounts to $2.40 billion, and it is projected to grow yearly by 8.45% compound annual rate growth 2023 to 2028. Recent figures show that the Nigeria's footwear market is experiencing a growth in demand for locally made, handcrafted shoes, occasioned by a growing appreciation for traditional craftsmanship. Footwear is the second most important fashion segment within the retail business, just behind apparel. Although a recent change in customers' purchasing habits caused by the rise of e-commerce and new store concepts created by major footwear manufacturers exert substantial pressure on stationary retail stores. The Nigerian leather industry generates between $600 to $800 million through exports yearly, according to a report by JCRVRS Credit Rating Company Limited. In spite of the prospects and opportunities in the sector, there are obviously some challenges facing the industry, like scarcity of hides and skins, the high cost of production caused by rigorous licensing procedures, as well as high logistic costs. Similarly, it is worth noting that leather manufacturing has got some significant environmental impact and sustainability hiccups, like the use of hazardous chemicals, high water use, air and water pollution, to mention but a few. Although this sector has got a great deal of potential to grow and invariably leading to the creation of jobs for the teeming population of young people, the issues of access to finance services, availability of raw materials, sustainable frameworks would need to be looked into by the government in order for the industry to be able to boost the economy. Juvi Ufiene, Souq News. Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
Government says that subsidy is not in oil, and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Thank you, Juvi Ufiene, for that report on the leather industry in Nigeria. Taking it further, we will be bringing in Sarah Kusu, who is a lecturer and coordinator of footwear design, Nigerian Institute of Leather and Science Technology, NILEST, Zaria, Kaduna State, to talk about leather and footwear industry in Nigeria. The market is very huge, but how well is the leather and footwear industry in Nigeria doing? Is it able to break into the international market? These are some of the issues we're looking at. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm great. I'm happy to speak with you.
All right, let's take a deep look now at the leather and footwear industry in Nigeria. I did say that the market is quite huge and we seem to have the raw materials in Nigeria, but how's that going for us? The leather industry, access to raw materials. Tell us about it.
Okay. Well, based on Nigerian leather and footwear manufacturing sector, you know, it plays a very vital role in our country's economy, which has a blend of our heritage, craftsmanship, and industrial potential. Now, based on the leather and footwear, we can say that it explores sectors' dynamic change opportunities and strategies for sustainable growth. Leather and footwear stands as at the intersection of craftsmanship, technology, and fashion, which encompasses the production of a wide array of leather goods and fashion products.
All right, Sarah, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Nigerian leather and footwear industry is estimated to worth about $1.4 billion. I would like you to talk to us the potential, how huge the opportunities inherent in this industry, and what is so peculiar about the Nigerian leather that is making it a point of attraction to investors and even people who do businesses in this industry?
Okay, if I may understand your question. Now, the industry encompasses various segments, including tannery, footwear manufacturing, and leather goods production. However, the sector faces challenges as infrastructure deficits, limited technology advancement, and supply chain inefficiencies affecting productivity and competitiveness. Now, based on our leather products, the reason why it's different is because tradition is actually matched together with craftsmanship, and that is why our leather is being unique and likened by other economies.
All right. Now, as good as our leather is and well appreciated, but we don't seem to be doing much craftsmanship with them in terms of producing enough footwears for Nigerians. There is still lots of consumption of foreign-made footwears by Nigeria. Why do we have this disparity? We have good quality leather, but we do not have the finished work so much, and even the appreciation locally.
Okay, now that has to do with the advancements and current opportunities for growth. Now, the footwear industry has been there for a while right now, and the reason here is because despite the challenges, the sector presents opportunities for value addition, job creations, and export potential. Now, leveraging on the traditional craftsmanship alongside with modern innovations, which enhances quality standards and exploring global market access, which improves the growth of country Nigeria. Now, based on the strategies for advancement, strategies for sectorial advancement involves investments in infrastructure, technology transfer, and skill development, encouraging public-private partnership, promoting research and development, and aligning with global quality standards, which enhances competitiveness.
Okay, I would like you to talk to us about some of the limitations when it comes to the issue of technology in this industry, and what your institute is doing in this regard, the kind of activities, the kind of training you are having in this regard to ensure that you'll be able to manage this shortfall in the industry, the limitations when it comes to technology and concept. I would like you to shed more light on that.
Oh, all right. Now, the first thing that I would like to share on is the adaptation of modern technology and innovation in the sector is relatively slow, which, but in my institute, what we do is based on training, we actually introduce them to what leather and footwear really entails, and which based on technology, we use this computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacturing sector, where we talk to them about how to design and how to create other features which have to do with footwear and leather. Now, for leather has to do with tanning of materials which needs, it's either vegetable tanning or chrome tanning, and that's actually is being taught to people, trainees that comes to the institute, and I believe that the trainees gain a lot of knowledge on that, and they actually put it into practice.
All right, you talked about the adoption of technology being slow. Why is that so? Is it that the technology cannot be locally sourced? And do we also have the challenge of skills gap?
Yes, it's actually very slow because most people we have around here are mostly not literate per se, because those they send for training are not conversant with technology that has to do with designing and manufacturing. So that's actually created a gap in our institute or in the footwear industry here in Kaduna State.
I would like you to still shed more light on some of these technological know-how that's been deployed in the modern day production of leather or footwear. Talk to us, what are these technological devices or the technological innovations, you know, when it comes to the modern day production of footwear and leather production? Talk to us about some of these tech innovations.
Well, one of the tech innovation that we have about leather and footwear manufacturing is the footwear industry actually uses some we use footwear aided design, where designs are being created, and if you're not really conversant with it, there's no how you'll be able to create your designs based on it. And for the leather industry also, if you're unable to operate the machines or the equipment there, it actually leads to it distorts the item, the instructions in the machine. And based on the computer aided design, the students, the IT students that come around actually use what's it called, they actually use mostly hand-free designs, where they create their designs using their hands or manually, and that's actually creates a very innovative designs. And for the technology right now, it's actually wide, where students want to really venture into it, and if they don't have an experience of it, it crumbles.
Let's have a comparison between Nigeria's leather and footwear industry and that of Italy, because there is a high demand for Italian leather and footwear globally, even Nigeria. Italy enjoys lots of patronage from Nigeria when it comes to leather and footwear. Now, these are some of the things that you will find when you do a comparison. First of all, in terms of production volume, Nigeria produces averagely 75 million pairs of footwear per year, as compared with 200 million pairs of footwear per year produced by the Italian leather and footwear industry. And when you also look at quality, Nigeria leather and footwear is classified as low quality, and also the design is also classified as of a less sophisticated. How can we correct this to be able to take advantage of the foreign markets?
Okay. I would say the impact of production and quality. The lack of adequate infrastructure actually in Nigeria and technology adaptation affects the production of it affects production and capacity and quality standards of leather and footwear products here in Nigeria, and that is why the Italy products is always more qualitative than Nigerians' own. And I feel that in order to improve that, the improvement infrastructure and technology could lead to enhancements in the production and processes, which will actually reduce waste and higher quality and product of the end product. And based on Nigerian products, I feel that actually we go for low quality items where even the production is actually low because of selfish reasons. And I guess that's the more reason why our product is more inferior than that of the Italy.
All right, there's this practice in this climb where there's preference for foreign-made products. How has this significantly affected the patronage for locally made footwears in Nigeria?
Oh, okay. Actually, going for foreign products and here in Nigeria, a lot of people prefer foreign products compared to our locally made products because they feel their products are more qualitative, more durable, and so on and so forth. But in order to correct that aspect, I guess our footwear industry, footwear industry needs to actually sit up and make an investment in collaboration or have a public and private partnership skill development, which will actually create more investments and propel technological advancement and infrastructural development here in Nigeria. If not, people still go for qualitative products, which comes from which is actually foreign than that of the locally made products.
All right, according to reports, Nigeria leather and footwear industry is said to be unorganized. Is there an aspect of the value chain that is missing? What can we do to have the industry more organized?
Like I said earlier on, we actually need to partner with both the public and the private sector to actually merge them together. And apart from that, I don't think the growth will be more impactful in Nigeria. And I feel the impacts of our infrastructure development here in Nigeria, the leather and footwear industry actually grapples with infrastructure deficiencies, which power supply is actually a problem here in Nigeria, which is actually affecting most industries here in Nigeria. And transportation and industrial zones actually also find it very difficult based on productions of leather and footwear products. Now, and I guess I feel that these challenges hinder effective productions and logistic distribution, which creates impacts in the industry's competitiveness in global markets.
All right. As a lecturer in the Institute of, the institute related to the issue of leather, I would like you to talk about some of the research, and developmental projects or programs that should be taking place in some of our institutes, and how that can be extended, to the stakeholders in the industry, so as to be able to improve on the level of skills gap, which has also been affecting that industry. Talk to us about some of your projects, some of the activities when it comes to the issue of data research, and what will be the impact of that on the stakeholders in that industry?
Oh, okay. Based on that of the footwear, I can say that researches have been made so far, especially on that of diabetic footwear and orthotic footwears, where productions have been made, and researches actually have been made based on that, where um, where products actually correct what it's affecting an individual, and it corrects the foot based on that. And it's also based on the leather products which is being used, because if you're using a product that is not good for such item, I guess it creates more problem for to create more problem to the foot. And based on research is also on leather, people have come up with types of tanning of using different natural products based on that. And I guess it's actually impressive, and yeah, it's impressive.
For speaking to us on the leather and footwear industry in Nigeria. We're not done. We're just going to take a quick break and return to continue the conversation with you. Please stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souq News. If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it, because this is Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souq News. Here's the Souq News, who had the courage to transcend a locked-off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure.
According to reports by the Nigerian Institute of Leather Science and Technology, NILIST, Nigeria has the capacity to make 200 million pairs of shoes yearly, valued at more than $1.4 billion. In 2023, the revenue generated from the footwear market in Nigeria amounts to $2.40 billion, and it is projected to grow yearly by 8.45% compound annual rate growth 2023 to 2028. Recent figures show that the Nigeria's footwear market is experiencing a growth in demand for locally made, handcrafted shoes, occasioned by a growing appreciation for traditional craftsmanship. Footwear is the second most important fashion segment within the retail business, just behind apparel. Although a recent change in customers' purchasing habits caused by the rise of e-commerce and new store concepts created by major footwear manufacturers exert substantial pressure on stationary retail stores. The Nigerian leather industry generates between $600 to $800 million through exports yearly, according to a report by JCRVRS Credit Rating Company Limited. In spite of the prospects and opportunities in the sector, there are obviously some challenges facing the industry, like scarcity of hides and skins, the high cost of production caused by rigorous licensing procedures, as well as high logistic costs. Similarly, it is worth noting that leather manufacturing has got some significant environmental impact and sustainability hiccups, like the use of hazardous chemicals, high water use, air and water pollution, to mention but a few. Although this sector has got a great deal of potential to grow and invariably leading to the creation of jobs for the teeming population of young people, the issues of access to finance services, availability of raw materials, sustainable frameworks would need to be looked into by the government in order for the industry to be able to boost the economy. Juvi Ufiene, Souq News. Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
Government says that subsidy is not in oil, and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Many thanks for being there. We're still talking with Sarah Kusu, who is a lecturer and coordinator footwear design during Institute of Leather and Science Technology, NILEST Zaria, Kaduna State. And she's been talking with us about the issues in Nigeria's leather and footwear industry. We'll return to her now to continue the conversation. Thank you for staying with us, Sarah.
You're welcome.
You were talking about how that some persons, some craftsmen in leather works are not literate. Now, let's look at having it done by having leather manufacturing and footwear design and manufacturing done a lot by artisans. Do we have lots of people enrolling in polytechnics and institutes, maybe like yours, wanting to study about the manufacturing of leather and footwear? How can we improve that? Have more people from the academic institutions who have this knowledge, who have this technology, being more involved in this sector?
If I can understand your question properly, well, here in our institute, we actually have people that come in to actually enroll in leather and footwear manufacturing. And actually, it has been a joy to this institute to have people who can produce and manufacture products as footwear and leather. And though they're, based on what I said earlier on, I said most of them are literate and illiterate. Some actually don't know how to speak properly, but when it comes to craftsmanship, they actually work hard towards that. And they actually gain more knowledge on the manufacturing aspect of it. And actually, it has improved. We have people from other institutes or universities that actually come to enroll, also just to get experience on the manufacturing of this product. And some of them are doing well. They have come up with their own companies, or should I say small scale industry, where actually they make products that is actually inspiring to we, the lecturers and those in the institute, and we're being proud of it.
Okay, several experts have talked about the need to have synergy between the gown and the town, meaning that the synergy that should exist when it comes to skills development for people who are undergoing this training. I would like you to talk to us about your observations as a lecturer or a trainer in this regard, and what can be done to bridge this gap between the town and the gown when it comes to the training related to leather and footwear in Nigeria.
Okay. The training here in leather, based on the leather and footwear, the synergy is actually it's intertwined, where those that are here for training actually have have encouraged they have encouraged students here in our institute, where they put more effort to see that they gain more intellectual practical processes. And I feel that based on my own observation, it's actually encouraging for others to actually venture into leather, and people cannot do without footwear because they need something to cover their foot. And leather is actually a qualitative material where it doesn't shrink, it doesn't cause a problem to one's feet. So I feel the gap is actually.
All right. Let's look at sustainability of the leather and footwear industry. That would mean ensuring that we continue to have raw materials. The challenge that Nigerians have with staying off the hides and skin, because there's a lot of consumption of the hides and skin that is used for the production of leatherwork as food. But more, I'm referring to that now. So how do we ensure that we continue to have the raw materials here?
Okay, if I get your question correctly. Now, in order to have our raw materials here, we need to collaborate and also invest, or call investors to invest in our production of leather and footwear products, where it actually boosts the market and exportation process.
Follow up on that question, or I rephrase it this way. Nigerians like to consume pomo, what you call from the leather that's supposed to be diverted to production of footwear and other accessories. But there's this report that suggests like Nigerians consume their leather. But do you think there can be any intervention that can stop the consumption of pomo? The federal government attempted it at a point. But how successful will this be, and what has been the impact of this on the commercial use of the raw materials for the production of footwear in Nigeria? And do you think this is sustainable, looking at the bias that Nigerians have for pomo?
Well, I'll say pomo here in Nigeria, I don't think it can be stopped, because even right before now, it has been consumed. And people feel if you can't get the actual meat, you should be able to get the pomo itself. And I feel in order to stop the intake of pomo, I feel people should be given awareness on the intake of pomo, because the pomo they take is actually meant for leather production and footwear manufacturing. So the awareness should be created to people, and I guess that will stop the intake of the leather being taken by people. And if it's been stopped, I feel the accessories, leather accessories and footwear, leather goods could also be improved in our economy, and at least it will also boost the finance in our country.
Let's also take a look at the affordability of this raw material. We understand that cattle are expensive. Does it also affect those who are into the leather production? How affordable is a raw material?
Okay, seeing the fact that the cattle itself is expensive, actually it has reduced the production of leather in Nigeria, because most people are unable to purchase and flay up the skin in order to get leather from it. And I think if the economy is good, the reduction, or should I say the purchase of items here in Nigeria will actually improve the economy here in Nigeria. And the aspects of purchasing the cattle will also improve leather manufacturing here in Nigeria, and the production of footwear itself.
Look at the issue of standardization. Why a lot of people prefer Italian shoes has to be with the standard compared to the ones made in Nigeria. How do we improve on this as a nation to ensure that the footwear here, they are internationally acceptable and can compete with others? How do we improve the standard of production, the design, and the style when it comes to footwear manufacturing in Nigeria?
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souq News. If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it, because this is Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souq News. Here's the Souq News, who had the courage to transcend a locked off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souq News. Thank you very much.
Needs to be looked into, where the leather being used should be qualitative and durable, and should have this breathability nature, where even if it's been produced, the shoe wouldn't smell because it's breathable. Now, what I mean by breathable is the passage of air into the footwear and the exiting of the air from the footwear. Now, in the design aspect, when we look at our footwears, mostly are the regular classical shoes, that's the official shoes, and the casual shoes, which are the occasional shoes. When we improve the design of the products, where we fuse in other aspects of, let me make an example on getting what we call a theme. A theme is it's more like a source of design, where we actually use either the animal products from nature, or artificial products, where we have where it contains more elements of design in it. And when it comes to that, the elements of design should be extracted in order to fuse into the leather product, where the design is being created using that same element. Now, let's assume I have an Ankara product where it carries features or designs, concentric designs on it. We pick patterns from the product and create designs with it, and that actually should give a different look to that product which has been seen so far, and that is what we're doing here in the institute. Then another thing is the bonding aspect of the footwear. Now, if we can get adhesives or polyurethane adhesive, where the bonding will be firmly done, the production won't actually be a problem. I guess and if the product is fully finished properly, I guess it can compete with the Italian shoe you've been talking about. Now, the Italian shoe is just a name where people are already used to Italian and coming from outside the country, and that one actually people prefer buying things that are not made in Nigeria. And I feel if people can come and view what is happening here in the institute, I guess they will be impressive to see products which are being designed by artisans and
our guest on the show, who's been Sarah Kusu, a lecturer and coordinator of footwear design, Nigerian Institute of Leather and Science Technology, NILES, Zaria, Kaduna State, who has been talking to us about leather and footwear manufacturing in Nigeria. She's looked at the infrastructure development, technology adoption, raw material availability, and of course, sustainability. We'll take a quick break, return to look at a different aspect as it concerns leather and footwear manufacturing in Nigeria. It's an exchange, don't go anywhere.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souq News. If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it, because this is Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souq News. Here's the Souq News, who had the courage to transcend a locked-off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souq News. Thank you.
Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekbetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State, on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with a daily service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande, Souq Enlightenment. Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional. These are
Government says that subsidy is not in oil, and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil.
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's a bismarck. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Many thanks for staying with us on Early Exchange on Souq News, and we are focusing today on leather and footwear manufacturing. Now let's look at the market side. Yes, how is business for those who are into leather manufacturing and footwear? What are the export potentials? What about the access to finance for those who are manufacturing leather and footwear in Nigeria? To talk to us about that, we have a shoemaker, someone who's actually a craftsman in leatherworks, and also an entrepreneur, Tiwade Damilola, joining us virtually. Good morning, Tiwade. All right, we'll bring in Tiwade later on in the show, but I need to ask this man who is seated beside me here what he thinks about Nigerian leather, because it's not just about footwear. You have leather in upholstery, you have leather in different aspects, even for those who travel into Nigeria. Some of them want to get souvenirs of leather works. What are your thoughts about Nigerian leather?
The interesting thing is, one unique thing about our leather is about the durability, you know, because it's localized, and the patronage is high, you know, even in spite of the challenges and some of the in-house problems inherent with this industry. Now, the industry is estimated to worth about $1.4 billion. In fact, the statistics shows that the industry has the tendency to produce about 200 million footwears per year. But what we're producing presently is between 50 to 70 million footwears per year, which likely, you know, talked about what you made reference to earlier, that the industry in Nigeria is largely unorganized, because you have most of these artisans, some of them are illiterate. You know, some of these industries are located in Aba, in Kano, in Anambra, some in Lagos. And if you look at the way that industry is being organized, there's no formal arrangement whereby the issue of data, it's even a problem. And so if you look at the production itself, to centralize it and put planning into it, data into it, becomes a challenge. But the estimation is that we produce between 50 to 70 million footwear. So the tendency to produce 200 has to be the fact that some of the challenges and the shortfall. But likely, given to us in Nigeria, the patronage is high, except that there are some of issues that have to come, the issue of standard, you know, which was what Sarah talked about earlier. You know, even some of these raw materials, the way they are being, the greatest stress has to be the fact that Nigerians love to consume pomo. And I don't know how federal government will stop that, people from consuming pomo, because the consumption of pomo is also a threat to the availability of this raw material. And so this is something that is a reality we have to live with, because it's going to be a long fight.
I think if we have enough production of cutters, perhaps that will go a long way to address that issue, because it's formed part of a local delicacy. You have it prepared in different forms, and it's in high demand. So actually stop people from consuming that, I do not know how much of success any government can have with that.
Makes it a preference.
Makes it a preference.
To beef and other, you know.
Yes, and for those who have one health condition or the other, for some of them, dietitians or even their their physicians may advise them to take that, because they want to discourage the consumption of protein or of meats, because of some other health issues it may have for people at a certain age and with certain health condition. But if we have more than adequate production of the cutters, perhaps there could be a balance. Some goes to the leather manufacturing, why some goes to consumption. I can hear those who love Pomo applauding for me right now for being an advocate for them to continue the consumption. But I'm just thinking that perhaps there's a way to work around this and have some balance. But it seems like Tiwalade Damilola is ready for us this morning. Hello, Tiwalade. Can you please unmute your mic so we can hear you and have the conversation? Thank you for joining us. How are you doing this morning? Unmute yourself, please. Can you turn on your mic?
Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. All right, so finding a lady in your profession isn't a common feat. You don't find that very often. I want to know, first of all, what your interest is with leather and footwear production. Can you hear me, Tiwa? Okay, if you can hear me, can you just nod so I know that you can hear me? All right. So, but you are still muted. Turn on your mic. Can you do that quickly? All right, let's give Tiwalade some time to have that sorted. We'll take a quick break right now. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you're on to Souq News. If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it, because this is Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souq News. Here's the Souq News, who had the courage to transcend a locked-off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souq News. Thank you very much.
If you want to advertise your product, just come here and let us help you to get to places. Yeah, you can't do it alone. No, you need this channel to do it for you.
Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Eche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
It's good to know you're still with us in Early Exchange and you want to learn more about the leather and footwear manufacturing in Nigeria. Perhaps you have interest in that and you want to go into the line of business. Well, let's have someone who's already in that business tell us more about it. We have Tiwalade Damilola, who is a shoemaker, who is an entrepreneur, who's very much into the leather and footwear industry. Talk to us about it. All right, Tiwalade, let's talk about this. I want to know what your interest is with leather and footwear manufacturing, of all the kinds of things you could have done, other kinds of business. You could have been a fashion designer, a hairdresser, or something different. Why did you pick leather and footwear production? And please turn on your mic so we can hear you. Okay, let
Hello.
me guide you through this. If you look at your device, you'll find the mic icon. Just tap on it and then you'll be unmuted. All right, let's hear
Can you,
you.
can you hear me now?
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So, hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead and talk to us. Why did you pick leather and footwear manufacturing?
Okay. I chose the business out of interest. I was actually doing bag making in the past. It was doing the buying of the materials. Someone told me that since I can make bags, that I can also go into shoemaking. So I was like, okay, since people use bag, they also make use of shoes. Okay, let me give it a try. So I went for the training and I was stuck on it. So it's something I don't even want to stop. Yes.
Good to know. You talked about training. How was your training? Is it like you had someone who was already into the manufacturing of shoe train you in a shop, or it was a formal training? Let's understand how this thing works.
Okay. My own training actually took place right in the market where I buy materials from, where I buy my bag materials from. And in that market, they also sell shoe materials like your leathers and other accessories for making shoes. So that was where I learned it because there are guys there who are already into shoemaking. So when you go there, all you have to do is pay a certain fee and then you start the training. So it wasn't in the school, it was right in the market.
Olade, got to know you are here with us. As an entrepreneur, I would like you to talk about the level of patronage for locally made footwears and what is so unique about Nigerian leather compared to others that is making it significantly important.
Okay. I can tell you for sure that there is a great request for locally made shoes right now compared to years ago, because years back also I wouldn't want to go for locally made shoes because I always believe as in the not even the quality, like the end product sometimes it doesn't look neat, sometimes it doesn't look perfect to me. But when I started the training, I realized that there are different materials and how you put them together that makes that makes how beautiful the show is going to be and of how much quality it's going to have. So right now, like I'll say since 5 years ago, people have really embraced handmade shoes. It's all about how you make it, the quality, and the finished product, what it looks like. So I'll actually encourage people who wants to go into shoemaking. Like you have to have a formal education aside going into shoemaking, because if you're not creative, also it shows in the work. You have to be creative. You have to have a passion for fashion. It's just like dressmaking. It has Shoemaking has details. You have to be detailed. So it's when you're detailed, when you can bring out the beauty of a shoe, that is when you can get good patronage from people. Right now I have people outside Nigeria who still order for my own products, because when you even look at it, until someone tells you, oh, this thing is handmade, before you even know it's handmade or it's actually made in Nigeria. So it all depends on who is making it and how creative you are.
Okay, when you say a leather work, maybe a footwear is handmade, what are you referring to? Is it that there is no kind of equipment used, you don't use certain kinds of technology? Can you explain that to us? In
Okay,
terms
when I
of the
say
quality
handmade, I'm
and the
talking about
durability for
locally made.
handmade leather work.
Yeah, when I say handmade, I'm talking about locally made shoes, whereby you get your materials directly from the market. It's a plain sheet, it's a plain leather. use your own creativity, your own hand to cut out the pattern before you can even place it on a machine. And there are even some designs that you don't really need to make use of a machine to bring out the style you want. You do it with your hands, like handcrafts. So that is what I mean by handmade. It's basically major part of the production is with the use of your hands, with the use of your own creativity before you can even put it on the machine to bring out the end product.
Does that in any way limit the amount of production that you can do?
In some ways, because most of these machines, they are electrical, they make use of electricity. So if I cut out a pattern and I need to make use of my machine and there's no light, then it's going to slow down the production. But I think it's all about time frame, like what you can produce within a short period of time, or how much you want to produce. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. It's not something you have to rush. It takes time. So if you're going to use your hand, or of course, it's going to limit the amount of time you're going to use, or like when you use, even when you're using a machine, everything, you don't use your machine for the production 100%. You still have to make use of your hand. So yeah, it's kind of, there's going to be a little limitation without machine and electricity.
Okay, Tiwa, let's talk about the issue of financing. I would like you to briefly tell us your story. How did you overcome the challenge of sourcing for the right capital to start this business? And then how have you been financing this project as for people, reference for people who wants to go into the business to learn some lessons? Did you have access to loans or grants, or how were you able to overcome this challenge on financing when you started your business?
I still have that challenge because this business, it's capital intensive. So when you don't have much capital, you're limited on how much you can produce and how much you can make. When I started from school when I was in the university, because where I get my materials from is close to my school. So because I was a student, the person that taught me was kind of considerate on the excuse me, on the amount to take from me. Then while doing the practical, because it's practical work, you don't just go there and look. It's practical. Everything you're going to be doing, it's practical. You have to buy materials, you have to buy your tools and all that. I had some challenges with that because I didn't even tell my parents I was doing it. I didn't tell them. I just, when I'm free, when my lecture free days, that is when I go to the market to learn. Like I said, it was closer to my school. So I think that was still what helped me. But when it comes to getting my materials, I had some challenges because I had to use my own pocket money to get some of the materials. There are some I don't even pay for immediately. So that was how I was able to do that. But when it comes to other people who don't have access to this market and they have to learn from other people, like if I have to train someone, I collect an amount, and some of them, sometimes they come back, some they don't have this money to do the training, and you wouldn't see them again. Then, well, excuse me, during my NYSC days too, there were people who were interested in this craft, making of shoes, but the government is bringing people to teach the scopers, but I can tell you for sure, most times they don't really learn much because they don't have the materials. So you just have to stand and be watching the person teaching you, and you can't learn it like that. You have to have, the money has to be there for you to get your materials. So right now, since I now know it and I'm into the business, I actually want to grow my business, but it's capital intensive. Like I said before, it's a lot of money. You have to buy your machines, buy your stamping machine. It takes a lot. So right now I'm just making do with what I have to push the business, because it's what I love doing. So I'm not even discouraged with that, because I know with time that will be solved. But it's not everybody that has that patience. Like, people want to do something today and make the money immediately, but you just have to have patience. You have to be patient. If you don't have the money, the ready-made money to push to boost the business, you have to be very patient with it and be very creative with how
Let's
you
talk
make
about
it
pushing
that
the
makes you
business.
money.
You made mention earlier of people requesting for some of your products from outside of Nigeria. How do they get to see your works? And how are you pushing the market? What do you think can be done to create a wider market for those like you who are into manufacturing of leather footwears?
Okay, like I said, I have customers outside the country. Most of these people are people that were in Nigeria before. Some of them, when they traveled, they still patronize me. While some, it's why some of them just make referral, like, so you're putting on the shoe and someone says, "Oh, who made it for you?" And you tell them, "Oh, it was made in Nigeria." So I get referrals too, and I'm actually able to achieve more of that with the use of social media. Yes, I make use of Instagram and other social platforms where I post my products regularly so people can view them and we have a discussion on what they want. They can send in their designs, or sometimes I create my own designs for them.
Well, Lade, Damilola, we must thank you for spending time with us on Early Exchange. I'm sure your story will have encouraged some young people into going into this business. Those who think white collar job is the rave, but with your example, I'm quite sure they will have learned some lessons. Thank you so much for your submissions on Early Exchange today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, blessing.
Yes, it's been a wonderful show talking about the leather manufacturing in Nigeria. Like I said, it's not just for footwear. Leather is being used for a lot of things, making of chairs, upholstery, so many other things, even for souvenirs, different kinds of work. We can only encourage the industry. Government can encourage the industry by ensuring that it's well regulated. There is standardization of the output that comes from there, and even those in the industry can collaborate with each other to ensure that there is adequate supply. It goes, the value chains are well connected, and together we can all be proud of our leather industry. Let's also buy Nigeria, and if the work is good, then the bias that we have sometimes against made in Nigeria goods should not actually be there. It should be about quality. I am Blessing AJ. Thank you for your time with us on the show. It returns again tomorrow, 7 a.m. West African time. And then Business Insight comes up 10 o'clock here on Souq News. Thank you for staying with us.
As much as Nigerians love to consume leather skin, popularly called pomo, we also need to ensure that the commercial production of these materials are given priority to ensure that will sustain the footwear industry in Nigeria. This is our take-up, and this is your take-home. Please, let's see what we can do to improve the footwear industry in Nigeria. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.